Cancel culture. We've all heard the phrase, but where does it come from? What do we need to know to not fall into the cancel culture traps? Today's episode of Press Conference, we will discuss cancel culture with one of the country's top public relations experts, Brian Hart. I'm your host, Jim DeLorenzo, the principal of Jim DeLorenzo Public Relations. You can find me online at jimdelorenzo.com. I have found that my career in public relations is my true vocation, telling the stories of my clients and colleagues in a compelling way to drive sales, membership, and awareness. If you have ever had any questions about the role public relations can play in your business or in your career, I would be happy to share my thoughts and experiences with you. Please feel free to contact me directly, either by email at jim@jhdenterprises.com or by cell phone or text message at 215-266-5943. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. My guest today, Brian Hart, is the founder and president of Flackable, an award-winning public relations agency representing financial and professional services brands nationwide. The agency, which he bootstrapped in 2014 at the age of 27, guides growth-driven brands to new levels of credibility, authority, and influence through its innovative, integrated approach to public relations. His professional recognition includes the Bulldog Reporter's 2021 Silver PR Star under 40 and PRNEWS' 2020 Agency Elite Top 100, among many other industry and business awards. In 2020, Brian developed an industry-first client portal and automated campaign status reporting system, a platform delivering unprecedented campaign clarity, transparency, and accountability. Brian leads and mentors a growing team of top public relations talent who routinely land Flackable's clients in top news outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Fox Business, Bloomberg, Forbes, Barron's, U.S. News and World Report, the Associated Press, Reuters, and various industry trade press. I'm pleased to welcome Brian as my guest. In some ways we're competitors, in some ways we're colleagues, and I'm hoping we'll be friends going forward. I've followed your career with interest since you started the agency a couple years back, and I'm very glad that you could be on the show today.
Jim, thanks so much for bringing me on. That intro, you're going to make me blush before we even get going.
That's what I try to do, I try to make everybody look good. That's what we both do, right?
Absolutely. But very excited for the topic. And if we do this one right, one of us is getting canceled by the end of it. Probably me. But
that's something we're all scared about these days, isn't it? And when we were talking before, Brian, and this topic came to mind for both of us, you have very clear and very interesting opinions on cancel culture, both from your own experiences and from the experiences of some of your clients and colleagues. And what I'm interested in is, to start, what is your definition of cancel culture?
Yeah, that's so important because this term gets thrown around so much and has been twisted and muddied to have so many meanings. So I want to define what I'm talking about when I talk about cancel culture and what it's not, what I am not talking about. So let's just back up in the beginning. So there are major corporations, there are public figures, politicians, artists, athletes, celebrities who do and say terrible things sometimes and get a lot of public backlash for it. That's always been the case. If you are blasting out very controversial, unpopular opinions as a major brand or a major public figure, there is going to be public backlash. So I don't consider that cancel culture. And I know a lot of modern, especially politicians, are probably the best at it. Whenever they get any type of criticism, they like to lean on, oh, well, this is cancel culture. Well, no. I mean, if you say something that is highly offensive to a particular group or several groups, you're going to get backlash. That's part of being a public figure. and you're probably not going to get canceled for it unless it's over the top. So there's a difference between public backlash and criticism and this new breed of cancel culture, where it's not about trying to point out wrongs from big, powerful influencers, but it's seeping into small businesses and private citizens, where anybody who shares an opinion that doesn't align with that of the mob, of a big group, they will try to silence and intimidate you. And social media has been one of the biggest drivers of this phenomenon.
It is very interesting to me, and I think you're correct in taking it from the larger public figures and corporations and politicians, and then moving it into individuals, small businesses, not name brand people, not people who have a lot of impact beyond their immediate social circle or their public circle. And it's interesting to see this ostracizing of people, almost exiling them from society for something that they wrote on social media that might not be the same opinion that one particular segment of the audience appreciates, and that's our way of leveraging social media to destroy that person's career or reputation.
Yeah. And again, I mean, social media is the big driver, and Twitter is probably the most prolific platform that this comes from, but it's not exclusive to Twitter. It happens in all areas of the web.
Right.
But one thing you have to realize is that from the day you're born, you have built-in haters. No matter who you are.
Yes.
From the day you're born, and the more you grow up, form opinions, form your personality, and become yourself, you are going to accumulate more and more built-in haters. Whether it's the way that you look, whether it's your gender, whether it's your ethnicity, your religion, there are going to be built-in haters, where if you speak out, they will be ready to clap back at you and pounce like a pack of wolves.
It is interesting.
And the internet has made it a lot easier for them to group up and do that.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it too, because I always think back to when I was growing up, and I had a lot of coaches and teachers who shaped my way of thinking. And one of the thoughts was, if you don't have any enemies, then you're probably doing something wrong. And the other thing that they taught me was, if someone doesn't like you, there is nothing you're going to do to ever change that point of view. So how do you go on in life without further antagonizing people, and how do you manage to roll with the punches? Because there are going to be a lot of punches. As you said, they're going to come after you. Someone's going to come after you for something. And that intimidation factor, that shaming nature of, say, Twitter in particular, can be very overwhelming if you're not prepared for it, or if you've never encountered this before. And for older people like me, who came into social media when it started in 2008, 2009, and embraced it, there are other people my age and older who have no idea what to do when the mob, no matter what the size of the mob is, comes after you. What are some of the things that you've seen as far as how people respond to cancel culture?
Sure. So, I mean, back to one of the points that you just made. I think a lot of less sophisticated social media users don't know where the landmines are. You and I do, because we've been. I mean, I was a freshman in college when Facebook first spread to every university. So I mean, I was first generation Facebook. So I've had many years to watch it evolve and see some of these landmines develop. I know where they're planted. I've stepped in some, but I'm getting better at not doing that. But they're out there, and there are just more and more over the years. So, I mean, back to your question, what have I seen as far as what's getting people in trouble? I've seen people get ganged up on and bullied for very little things, and it really is. Cancel culture has become akin to cyberbullying. There's not a big separating line between the two. Again, when you're talking about cancel culture the way I defined it, and not the way that politicians will fling it out there and so forth. If you're a public figure, you're going to get some ostracism. That's just what you sign up for when you become a public figure, or when you're a big national brand. You're gonna get criticism.
Yeah.
So
you yourself had some interactions in the cancel culture space earlier this year, as I recall, over something seemingly insignificant, and I know that's probably why we started talking about this back a couple of weeks ago. But if you could share with our viewers and our listeners what that was and what happened and how you reacted.
Sure, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I will tell you what I saw from it and how I dealt with it. The situation was very silly. Somebody posted a statistic, a number. It was an academic, posted a number that was. I had to do a double take because it was that just off of a number. It just, the number posted didn't make any sense. So I tweeted back and just said, well, that's not my experience. Here's what my experience was. Very polite, civil tweet. Anyways, this upset her. And she went into some kind of rude responses, showing where her research was. I'm not going to get into the research.
Sure.
It was some wild research that was being cited. But anyways, I didn't respond because I don't respond to rudeness online. I've learned that can be one of the landmines.
Sure.
Getting into a back and forth in the comment sections. So I just didn't respond. I thought the response was over the top.
Good.
So when I didn't respond, she then quote tweets me and accused me of sexism. Because my experience did not line up with the numbers, the narrative that she was trying to push.
Oh my.
So anyways, I won't get into it. I basically stepped out of it. I did take some screenshots, just of some of the,
more of the harsher criticisms
that she was putting out.
Yeah.
But anyways, and then I blocked her. And I thought, okay, it's over. Then a lot of other academics in her circle, again, this is her tribe. This goes back to the whole concept of tribalism. They started coming at me, stalking my website, stalking personal things. I mean, and I didn't interact with any of them. I was
Right.
blocking them like Matumbo. Left and right. And it got so bad. And again, I wasn't interacting with any of them, but it got so bad, the level of harassment and whatnot, that I put up the restricted lock on my account. And it was something I had been wanting to do for a while because I've seen a Twitter get especially toxic over the past, really all throughout COVID.
Yeah.
People got nasty online. People were
You're
spending more time online, had more free time to engage in this type of cancel culture. And the platform really got to a creepy space. I mean, I had nothing that I took too seriously, but I've had a couple people threaten violence over the silliest tweet, a sports take.
Wow.
It's again nothing. Obviously, I reported it, and anytime you see somebody threaten violence, you should report that.
Yeah.
But it just got to a point where it just hasn't been very fun or productive because of just the level of vitriol pumping through that particular platform. So what I did was I just put up the restricted lock and let it be, and blocked the people that were coming at me. And in most instances, that's the best thing that you can do.
Sure. Well, I want to talk to you some more about this, Brian, because I think it's a fascinating topic. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk some more with Brian Hart about cancel culture and how you can hopefully avoid the landmines that are on social media. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Kinda new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Boardwalks built for fun. Legendary rock and roll clubs.
This is how we do it. Hippity hop.
Casinos by the ocean.
Hippity hop.
Now that's New Jersey. 130 miles of beautiful beaches. Solid rock. And everything in between.
Look in the window.
Now that's New Jersey. Plan your New Jersey trip at visitnj.org. Waves of fun. Nights of excitement. And a trail of memories. Now that's New Jersey.
Welcome back to Press Conference. We've been talking about cancel culture with my guest today, Brian Hart, the founder and president of Flackable Public Relations here in the Philadelphia region. He's national recognition for his campaigns on behalf of his clients in financial services and professional services. And we were talking before the break, Brian, about a little bit of what you had recently gone through. But what I'm interested in going forward about is how do you counsel your clients? You're working with some larger brands than I am. I have a lot of small businesses and individuals that I work with. But how can we counsel our clients on the pitfalls of social media and cancel culture so that they can perhaps overcome this phenomenon?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things to do is to build in a crisis response team. And the goal of having a crisis response team is not necessarily that you're expecting crises to happen. Ideally, if you've got a good crisis response team, you're not responding at all. You're proactively squashing these things before it blows up into a big crisis. But you need to know when a bad public sentiment goes out there, whether it's one bad review or one negative Facebook post or whatever, and this is very applicable to small businesses. That one bad review, that one post, you need to know who all that response is going through, who the decision makers are, what the progression is going to be like to either act or choose not to act. You don't want to wait until it happens
Right.
and then everybody look at each other wondering what's going on, because that's when you get the knee-jerk reactions that can make one little Facebook post a massive problem.
It's very
So that's
interesting.
the first step. Start there. And Jim, I'll let you add on if you've got some thoughts on that.
Well, it's interesting to me that you mentioned that because people think of crisis management in a lot of different ways. And I recently encountered a situation with one of my clients who is a small business person who had to let a few employees go 2 years ago when there was a change in the company. And one of those past employees has written bad things about the business on Glassdoor. I think it's called Glassdoor. And we were trying to find strategies to overcome that. And one of the things that you mentioned as far as crisis management is helping to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you can prevent that from happening, if you can work with your employees to make sure that you're managing their social media as far as in relation to the company, or you're managing their interactions with people when it comes in under the rubric of your company. That seems to be a great way to kind of preemptively or proactively prevent those things from happening, is a communication policy that encompasses social media and encompasses representing your employer in the public sphere.
Yeah, I agree. And you also need to know what your brand is. I've represented some fire brands and do represent some people who aren't afraid to be a little bit controversial.
Sure.
And to stir the pot. I love that. I do a little bit of that myself because it's built into our brand.
Right.
But you need to know what your brand is, and obviously, if you've got a more conservative brand, you're probably going to get more backlash if you go off brand and jump into the mud a little bit, or overreact to some criticism or whatnot.
Yeah. That's
Whereas
true.
the fire brands have they got a little bit of Teflon on them. They know, given just the nature of their brand, they can absorb hits, and they're gonna get hits because they are, challenging the status quo, and if they're doing their job right, they are building some enemies. That's what happens when you challenge the status quo or form strong opinions or passionate stances on certain issues and topics. Not everybody's going to agree with you. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what's missing in social media right now. People need to realize it's okay to disagree with somebody.
That's right. That's right. We might not all agree on everything. We can agree on some things, we can disagree on other things, but we can be civil. I think the next wave of social media is civil media, where we're being more civilized with each other, and we can be more responsible in our own opinions and responsible with recognizing other people's right to have those opinions.
Yeah.
I think that would be a
I
great next step
agree.
for, as opposed to, say, doxing, where everybody's address is exposed, and contact their employer, contact their friends, contact their clients, and give them a hard time for even being associated with you. It seems to be one of those other phases of cancel culture that can really hurt a small business or an individual just for having an opinion.
Sure. Yep.
What are some of the things that you see happening? Do you see some of these smaller social media tools, which I have not really explored, but are there going to be other tools that are going to kind of supplant the Twitters and Facebooks of the world, or do you just see that being kind of like a closed circuit right now?
Yeah. Well, you're going to continue to see alternative platforms go out there. So as more platforms go out and become viable, you're going to see a niching off of a little bit of the existing platforms. Clubhouse made a lot of noise during the COVID era. Now, we'll wait and see what the future of Clubhouse is. It looked very promising in the beginning. I think it's losing a little bit of steam, but that doesn't mean it's going away. It could be acquired. It could evolve. All of these platforms eventually evolve when they hit a hurdle or when they hit a slow point. So
Right.
we'll see what happens there. But Clubhouse, I see tapping. Clubhouse, I actually see as that almost that merging of the LinkedIn and Twitter crowd, but you're taking the more sophisticated, potty trained Twitter users and mixing them up with the LinkedIn crowd. That's
a
what
great
was
way to
the most
describe it.
appealing and promising to me about that platform. Now that's just one platform
Yeah.
that's come out. There's a lot of other ones, but I think you are going to see a lot of niching off. If you remember, 6 months ago there was a big exodus from Twitter,
Yeah.
or within the past 6 months, of people of a certain political affiliation who felt that Twitter wasn't
Right for them.
necessarily fair or
Yeah.
ideologically diverse. Whether you agree or disagree with that, they migrated to other platforms that they thought could better accommodate whatever they were trying to do. So you're going to continue to see a niching off. Absolutely, I think that's a trend to look to.
What do you say to your clients who are interested in places like Clubhouse or interested in doing more on social media? How do you caution them as far as, you mentioned crisis management and crisis prevention, if you will, or being forewarned and forward thinking. But what are some of the other things that you might say to your clients as far as where they need to be or what they should be looking for to not get canceled?
Right. Well, I mean, definitely go to the platforms where your target publics are going to be, but understand that you are going to have some people who, for one reason or another, are biased against your brand or don't like your brand, who are also on those platforms. Know who you are, know what you stand for, know what your brand is, know what you're willing to absorb. The more outspoken you are, the more backlash is going to come back at you. So you need to know your tolerance for criticism. The more you go out and criticize others or challenge the status quo, the more you're probably going to get back to you. It's not necessarily equal. It can be very disproportionate. One a little small criticism can get you a whole lot of backlash.
Sure.
But make sure that you're where your tribe is, where your clients are, where your prospective clients are,
Sure.
where your fan base is. That's a big part of it. And then those platforms where they are unlikely to be aligned with your values and your brand,
Get out of there.
stay off of them.
Yeah, stay away from
because
them.
there's little upside, but there's still potential downside.
Yeah.
There's risk on any of these platforms. So if the upside doesn't match the risk that you're taking from being on there, putting content on there, putting perspectives out there, then maybe consider not being on there at all.
That's a great point. I've mentioned that to several of my clients over the last few years, especially. And with the emergence of things like TikTok, well, we should be on TikTok. Well, what type of a business are you in? Well, I service, I work in the for lawyers and well, are lawyers really going to be using TikTok to get connected with your company? Probably not. Or are you going to be working with teenagers and millennials who and others who are using TikTok more frequently than say a business client might be? And they go, yeah, probably. Okay, well then you need to be there. But as you said, make sure it's where your audience and your potential audience is going to be. Don't just saturate every medium. We're beyond the period where we could do mass marketing on every channel and sell across all these different channels at once. I think, Brian, I think that there's a lot more that you and I could probably cover. We probably would need another half hour at least to do so, but I really want to thank you for your time today, and I really appreciate your thoughts on this. It's one of these topics that continues to be prominent in my thinking and my advice to my clients, and as I'm sure it is for you. And I look forward, hopefully we can have you back in a couple weeks and have a further conversation about this.
Love to. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you again, Brian. Brian can be reached, what was the best way to get in touch with you, Brian?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, at Brian Hart PR. You can go to my website, flackable.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. Just do a search for Brian Hart. I should pop right up.
Wonderful. And I encourage our viewers today to take a look. We're in competition, but we're also colleagues, and we're also growing as friends. So I really appreciate your time today, Brian, and congratulations again on all the great work that you do. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. If you have any further questions or you need to get in touch with me or have me send a message to Brian, you can email me at jim@jhdenterprises.com or give me a call, 215-266-5943. As I said, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.